good afternoon. It's Friday, July the 2nd, 2021, and this is The Black Man Who Reads Aloud. This is Joe Hall, the Black Blogger, and I'm continuing in my series of reading the words of those of our ancestors who were held in slavery. Today we're going to be reading the words written by Miss Irene Robinson, and the person she interviewed was Henry Anthony, who lived in Bisco, Arkansas. He was 84 years old at the time of this interview. I was born at Jackson, North Carolina. My master and mistress named Betsy and Jason Williams, but my pa's name was Anthony. My young master was an orderly sergeant. He took me with him to return some mules and wagons. He showed me what he had done as I followed him around with the wagons. The wagons hauled ammunition and provisions. Pa worked for the master and Ma cooked. They got sold to loose and capered. When freedom come, they went back and stayed a month or two at Williams. Then we all went back to John Odom. We stayed round close and farmed and worked till they died. I married, and when I had 4 or 5 children, I heard about this country. I come on immigration ticket to Miss Aldecott here at Bisco. Train full of us got together and come. One white man got us all up and brought us here to Bisco. I farmed for Mr. Aldelot for 4 or 5 years, then for Mr. Bland, Mr. Stroggins. I never went to school a day in my life. I used to vote here in Bisco right smart. I let the young folks do my voting. They can tell more about it. I just do not think it's a woman's place to vote and hold all the jobs from the men. If you don't in the primary cause, you don't know much to pick out a man. You sure don't know nothing or at all about voting in the general election. In fact, it ain't no good to our race nohow. The whole world gonna pass judgment, past my judgment long ago. I just sits around to see what they say and do next. It's bad when you can't work, you able to do, and that's hard on the old folks. I did save right smart. Sickness come. Sometimes you have a bad crop year and make nothing, but you have to live on. Young folks don't see no hard times if they keep well and able to work. I get commodities and $6 a month. I do a little if I can. One time my son brought a place for me and him. He paid all except $70. I don't know what it costs now, and it was 47 acres. I worked on it for 3 years. He sold it and went to the sawmill. He says he come out square on it. I didn't want to sell it, but he did. And this is the words of Katie Albury, Pine Bluff, Arkansas, age 80. I'm 80 years old. My name for I was a Aubrey was Baxter. My mother was a Baxter, born in Union County. My mother's first people was Baxters, and my grandmother was a Baxter, and they just went by that name, never did change her name. The boss man, that's what they called our master. His name was Paul McCall. He was married twice. His oldest son was Jim McCall. He was in the war, yes ma'am, the Civil War. Paul McCall raised me up with his children, and I never did call him master, just called him Pappy. And Jim McCall, I called his brother Jim. Just raised all of us up here in the yard. My grandmother was the cook. There wasn't no fighting in Union County, but I remember when the Yankees was going through and singing the Union forever, hooray, boys, hooray. We'll rally around the flag, boys, shouting the battle cry of freedom. She sang this, and I remember this good. Old buckwheat cakes and good strong butter. to make your lips go flip, flip, flatter. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. Pappy used to play that on his fiddle and have us children trying to dance. Used to call us children and say, you little devils, come on up here and dance and have us a marching. My cousin used to be a quilt blower. Brother Jim would out fishing canes and plait them together, and they call them a pack 5 in a row, just like my fingers. Anybody they know, how could sure they make music on him. Tom Rollins, that was my baby uncle. He was a banjo picker. I can remember a heap of things that happened about slavery, but I don't know one day from another. They treated us so nice that when they said freedom come, I thought I was always free. I heard my grandmother talk about selling them, but I was just a little child kid and I didn't know what they was talking about. I hear them say, did you know they sold on Sally away from a baby? I hear them talking, I know that much. After freedom, our folks stayed right on Paul McCall's place. My grandmother cooked for the McCalls till I was 8 or 9 years old. Then she cooked for the McCrays. They was all relatives till I was 21. Then I married. Paul McCall first married in the Baxter family, and then he married into the McCray family. I lived on the McCall place till I was grown. They all come from Alabama. Yes, they come before the war was. Children in them days paid attention. People raised children in them days. Folks just feed them now and let them grow up. I looks at the young race now and they is as wise as rabbits. I never went to school but 3 months, but I never will forget what the old blue back McGuffies. Sam Porter was our teacher and I was scared of him. I was so scared I couldn't learn nothing. As far as I can remember, I've been treated nice everywhere I've been. Ain't none of them white folks ever mistreated me. Lord, we had plenty to eat in slavery days and freedom days too. One time when my mother was cooking for Colonel Morgan and my oldest brother was working some land, my mother always sent me over with a bucket of milk for him. So one day she said, Snooky, come carry your brother's milk and hurry so he can have it for dinner. And I was going across the field and that was awful deer country. I had on a red dress and I was going on with my milk, and when I saw an old buck looking at me, all at once he went, and then the whole drove come up. There was mostly trees. I think she must have meant mimosas in the fields, and I run and climbed up on one of them. A mosley tree grows crooked. I don't care how straight you put it in the ground, it's gonna grow crooked. So I climbed up in the mosley tree and began to yell. My brother heard me and come because he knew what was up. He used to say, now Snip, when you come across that mosley field, don't you wear that old red dress because they'll get you down and tear that dress off you. I liked that dress because he had given it to me. I had set the milk down at the foot of the tree, and it's a wonder that they didn't knock it over. But when my brother heard me yell, he come a running with a gun and shot one of the deer. I got some of the venison, and he gave some to Colonel Morgan, his boss man. Colonel Morgan had fought in the war. The reason I can't tell you no more is since I got old, my mind goes this and that away. But I can tell you all the doctors that doctored on me, they gave me up to die once. I had the chills from the 1st of 1 January to the next. We had Dr. Chester and Dr. McCray and Dr. Lewis, his name was Perry, and Dr. Green and Dr. Schmed. Took quinine until I couldn't hear, and finally Dr. Green said, well, we'll just quit giving her medicine. Looks like she gonna die anyway. And then Dr. Lewis fed me for 3 weeks steady on okra soup cooked with chicken. Just give me the broth. Then I commenced to getting better, and here I am. But I can't work like I used to. When I was young, I could work right along with the men, but I can't do it now. I wish I could. There's a heap of things I like that my children and grandchildren can't get from me. Well, goodbye. Come back again sometime. And this one is Campbell Armstrong, Little Rock, Arkansas. I couldn't tell you when I was born. I was born a good while before freedom. I was a boy about 10 years old in the time of the Civil War. That would make me about 85 or 80 or 6 years old. My father's name was Cy Armstrong. My mother was Gracie Armstrong. I don't know the names of my grandparents. They was gone when I got here. My sister died right there in the corner of the next room. I used to live in an old log house, take dirt and daub the cracks. The floors were these here plaques. They had 2 windows and 1 door. That was in Georgia, in Houston County, an old Dempsey Brown place. I know him and know who dug his grave. They had the beds nailed up to the sides of the wall house. People had a terrible time, you know. White folks had it all. When I come along, they had it and they had it ever since I've been here. You didn't have no chance like folks here nowadays. Just made benches and stools to sit on, made tables out of planks. I never saw any cupboards and things like that. Them things weren't even thought about then. The house was like a stable then, but them log houses was better than these, because the wind couldn't get through them. I wasn't doing nothing but toting water. I toted water for a whole year when I was a boy, about 8 years old. I was a water boy for the field hands. Later, I worked in the fields myself. They would make me sit on my mammy's road to help her keep up. You free Negroes. You better not say you were free them days. If you did, they tell you to get out of here. You better not stop on this side of the Mason-Dixon line either. You better not stop on the other. You better stop on the other side. Whenever a nigga got so he couldn't mind, they take him down and they whip him. They whip the free niggas just the same as they did the slaves. Marriage. You see that broom there? They just laid that broom down and step over it. That was all the marriage they know it about. Corn shuckings. The boys used to get down and raise a holler and shuck that corn. Man, they had fun. They sure like to go to those corn shuckings. They danced and went on. They give them some whiskey too. That's all I know about it. Rations. They weigh all the stuff out and give it to you, and you better not go back. They give you about 3 pounds of meat and a quart of meal and molasses when they make it. Sometimes they would take a notion to give you something like flour. But you had to take what they give you. They give out the rations every Saturday, and that was to last you a week. Patrollers. I had a ball one night. I was at a ball one night. They had fence rails in the fire. Patroller knocked at the door, stepped in and closed it behind him. Nigga pulled a rail out of the fire and stuck it against the patroller, and that patroller stepped outside and let that nigga get by. Niggas used to tie ropes across the road so the patroller horses would trip up. Mulattoes. I ain't never seen no mulattoes then. That thing is something that just come up. Old Dempsey Brown, if he seen the white girls going around with the nigger woman with the white man going around with the nigger woman on his place, he'd run him away from there. But that's going on in the fold now. They ought not be. If God wanted them people to mix, he'd have mixed them. God made them red and white and black, and I'm going to stay black. I ain't climbed the fence yet, and I won't climb it now. I don't know. I don't believe in that. If you're white, be white, and if you're black, be black. Children need to go out and play, but these boys ought not be allowed to run after these girls' whippings. Your overseer carried their straps with them. They had them with them all the time, just like them white folks go do down to the country farm. Used to use a man just like he was a beast. They make him lay down on the ground and whip him. They'd had to shoot him down. That is the reason I tend to my business. If he wouldn't lay down, they call for help and strap him down and stretch him out. Put one man on one arm and another on the other. Then they pull his clothes down and whip the blood out of him. Then people don't care what they done since they didn't do right. Freedom. When I first heard them talking about freedom, I didn't know what freedom was. I was standing there writing, looking at them when they told us we was free. And the master said, you're all free now. You can go where you want to. They never give you a thing when they freed you. They give you some work to do. They never look for nothing, only to go to work. The white folks always had the best of it. When Abe Lincoln first freed me, they all stood together. If this one was ill and others went over and sat up with him. If he needed something, they carry it to him. They don't do that now. They done well then. As soon as they quit standing together, then that's when they had troubles. Fellow said to me, Campbell, I want you to split them blocks and pile them up for me. I said, what you gonna pay me? He said, I'll pay you what is right. I said, that won't do. You have to tell me what you're gonna have to give me before I start to work. And he said to me, you get the hell out of here. Selling and buying slaves. They put you on a block and sell you. That is what they do, they sell you. These white folks would do anything they want to do. They take off your clothes just like you was some kind of beast. You used to be worth $1,000 then, but now you're not worth 2 bits now. You ain't worth nothing when you're free. Refugees, Jeff Davis. They used to come to my place in droves. Wagons would start coming in the morning and they wouldn't stop until 2 or 3 in the evening. They'd all be traveling to keep out of the way of the Yankees. They caught old Jeff Davis over in Twigger County. That's in Georgia. Caught him in Buzzard's Roost. That was only about 4 or 5 miles from where I was. I was right down yonder in Houston County. Twigg County and Houston County is adjoining. I never saw any of the soldiers, but they was following them though. Voters. I have seen many niggas voting. I wasn't old enough to vote in Georgia. I come in Arkansas and found out how the folks used to use themselves, and I come out that business. They were selling themselves just like cattle, and I wouldn't have nothing to do with that. I knew Jerry Lawson, who was the justice of the peace. He was a nigger, a low-down devil. Man, them niggas done more dirt in this city. The Republicans had this city and state. I went to the polls and there was very few white folks there. I knew several of them niggas. Mac Armstrong, he was justice of the peace. I can't call the rest of them. Nothing but old thieves. If they had been people, they've been honest. They wouldn't sell their brother. If it's that bad yet, they still stealing yet. Ku Klux Klan, that's another devil, man. I tell you, I seen some terrible things. I don't know nothing much about him myself. I know one thing. Abe Lincoln said, kill him wherever you see him. Finally, self-support and the support of aid slaves in slave time. A white man asked me how much they was giving me, and I said $8. He said, you ought to be getting 25. I said, maybe I ought to be, but I ain't. I ain't able to do no work now. I ain't able to tote that wood hardly. I don't get as much consideration as they give the slaves back yonder. They don't make the old people, and they didn't make the old people in slavery work when they was my age. My daddy, when he was my age, they turned him out. They gave him a rice patch where he could make his rice, and when he died, he had a whole lot of rice. They stopped putting all the slaves out of hard labor when they got old. That's one thing. White folks would take care of their old ones. Our folks don't do it. They'll take a stick and kill you. They don't recognize you're human. Their parents don't teach them. Folks done quit teaching their children. They don't teach them the right thing no more. And if they don't, then they ought to make them do it. And finally, Little Rock. And that'll be the end of the reading. I've been here 20 years in Little Rock, Arkansas. I went and brought this place and paid for it. Somebody stole $75 from me right here in this house. And that got me down. I ain't never been able to get up and get sense. I paid a man for what he did for me. He said, well, you owe me 15 cents. Well, when he got done, you owe me 50 cents. You can't trust a man in the city. I was living down in England. That's a little old country town. I come here to Little Rock where I could be in the city. I done well. I brought this place. I reckon I lived in Arkansas about 20 years before I left and come here to Little Rock. And when I left Georgia, I come back to Arkansas and settled down in Roanoke County. Made crops there. I couldn't tell you how long I stayed there. I didn't keep no record of it. I come out of Lonoke County and went into Jefferson. Man, I was never in such a shape as I am now. That devilish stock law killed me. It killed all the people. Nobody ain't been able to do nothing since they passed that stock law. I had 75 hogs and 20 cows. They made up a law you had to keep them chickens up and keep them hogs up and keep them cows up. They shoot at every right thing and the wrong things they don't shoot at. God don't uphold no man to set you up in jail when you ain't done nothing. You didn't have no privileges then, slave time, and you ain't got none now. Thank you.